like we think this is coming out really good, like do you think you could like rush post-production and have it ready? Could you have it ready by April, and we were like, and I was like, yeah, sure.
Hey, welcome back to Love and Film. Jamie here. Today we are talking to a guest who is, well, a director, and I guarantee you've seen probably all of his movies. Mark Waters directed Freaky Friday, Mean Girls, Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, Mr. Popper's Penguins, to name a few, and he's done many more with that. He's one of these legendary directors in Hollywood who've been making movies for years, and all of his movies, I guarantee if you watch them, you'll think the same thing. Timeless. You can just watch Mark's movies over and over again and you'll never get tired of them. So I can't wait to talk to Mark. So without further ado, let's get into the interview.
Jamie, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Nice to meet you, Mark. Thanks so much for coming on for the interview.
Yeah, so where are you located right now?
So I'm in Ireland, across the pond from yourself in Dublin, the capital city.
I've heard of Dublin. I've actually been there a few times.
Have
I
you?
my I well, my ancestry is Irish. My father's family is all from County Kilkenny, and
Oh,
uh
wow.
and so I've made a couple pilgrimages there. I've had some good pub crawls in Dublin. Frankly, if I could have dual citizenship and live part of the time my life in Dublin, I would love it. But
Oh, well, we'd love to
but
have you. We'd love to have you. Kilkenny, I was only there last Christmas. It's just such a nice county and city in Ireland as well. So I suppose best way to start talking about filmmaking and you, I mean, you've done so many things, is the beginning. I mean, how did you get into filmmaking?
That's a big question. I'll kind of tell you in counterpart with my brother. My brother is Daniel Waters, who wrote movies like Heathers, Batman Returns, Demolition Man, and he's very big screenwriter, and he was somebody who knew what he wanted to do forever. He was writing screenplays in seventh grade, and wrote a column in the school paper, and then he went to college and wrote like another kind of brilliant screenplay there. And then after college, he immediately moved to Los Angeles, did the classic thing of like working at a video store and writing Heathers, and so he was very focused. Had like very little interest in anything artistic, for most of my life. I mean, I went to college at Penn, and I started off as a pre-med, and was like a pre-med for like a year and a half there, and then let me see. Okay, there you go. But being, we both grew up in the Midwest and in northern Indiana and in a smallish town called South Bend, Indiana. And so being on the East Coast, being around like being near New York City, I suddenly was kind of exposed to a lot of like theater and cool things. And I kind of started taking interest in it, and then slowly started kind of like, I'm going to take this class in theater. I'm going to take this class. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go see a show in New York. And then, by the time I left Penn, I kind of left being a pre-med, and I was like, I actually got an economics degree to please my parents, but I had a minor in theater arts, and they were going, like, "What's this minor in theater arts? Well, we were taking theater arts classes." Like, "Oh, nothing. I'm thinking about law school. Everything's okay." But then I kind of dove in at that point, but not till after college. And then I was an actor and director only in theater, and kind of we worked in Philadelphia for a bit, then traveled around Germany, and then ended up in San Francisco, where I kind of lived and worked for 5 years, just doing kind of fringe theater and stuff like that. But meanwhile, I was coming down to Los Angeles, and my brother was like on the sets of these big movies where he'd written the screenplay, and I was kind of amazed at like, oh shit, I didn't know anybody could do it. My effing brother can do it, then why not?
I
So
have
I
brothers too. I'd be the same. I'd be the same. I'd say, that guy could do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm watching the directors on those movies. I was impressed by like how well they knew all the technical stuff and the cameras and all that, but I wasn't impressed with how they talked to actors, and they all seemed like the actors were just like, more props for them to move around. And I thought, I'm really good with actors, if I could learn all these cranes and stuff, I could probably learn to do this. And so that's when I started to make some little short films on Super 8 film, cutting them together on like a little old worker splicer, and then I got into film school. I ended up saying, applying to getting into the American Film Institute. And so that kind of predicated me moving to Los Angeles. And I went there for 2 years. You know, I was kind of lucky. I went there with a particularly like talented class of filmmakers, like some of the filmmakers were directors, Darren Aronofsky and Todd
Wow.
Field, writer Scott Silver, cinematographer Maddie Libatique, the Doug Ellen, who was the showrunner of Entourage and creator. And we were all in the same class together. So it was a fertile environment of everyone kind of like supporting each other, criticizing each other. And then after school, I look back on like how I really struggled, but I struggled for about 2 years, and before I was shooting my first movie, The House of Yes, so that was the long way things started, and then like The House of Yes was interesting in that it kind of went back to my theater roots because it was a play I'd seen in San Francisco, and nobody really was interested in making a movie of it because it didn't do well in New York or London or Los Angeles. It did well in San Francisco, and I saw it twice while I was there, and actually like got a hold of a copy of the play, and I always thought like, wow, this is a good idea for a movie because it's all like contained in one place. It's five characters. You can make it for a little bit of money, and then and after AFI, one of my producers from AFI, and one of my production designer was a guy from AFI, and it was just ended up kind of being able to put it together and shoot it in summer of '96, and got into Sundance. We were at Sundance in '97, and that kind of started things off for me.
And Mark, it's mad hearing about these films to start you off and like your journey to where you became because we usually, when preparing for an interview, you'd have to watch a lot of directors' stuff, I mean, that you haven't seen. But when I was looking up your IMDb, I've seen every single one of your movies just from growing up. I mean, and I have one word for them, which is timeless. Every single one of them, you can rewatch them. There's so many movies where you cannot watch them again, but your films, I genuinely think you can just watch them over and over again, and that's what gives them that timeless feel. And in particular, a movie I grew up with was Freaky Friday, and
Mm.
it's a remake of a beloved classic and came out in 2004. How did you approach that in making it fresh while also, you know, honoring the original, what was good from that, while still trying to make it something that people would want to watch for that modern 2004 audience?
Yeah, no, it's funny because when I was they first said they were making it, I remember revisiting the first movie, which I just had this, memory of loving it. And I watched it again and I was like, wow, this movie's kind of bonkers. It really is just like, just and the thing that was bonkers about it was that like they weren't really playing each other, the mother and the daughter. They were just like Jodie Foster was just being kind of like a stiff school teacher, and Barbara Harris was playing drunk, just like and just being crazy and just going for it. And I was like, oh, this movie's really still entertaining, but it doesn't really like hold up in that way where it feels specific to each other, and that was that. And then when at that point in time, my second movie had been a big fat bomb, that where the movie had been taken away from me by the producer, and I didn't like how it turned out, because I didn't have control over it, and I was kind of officially in movie jail at the time, and even getting the meeting to meet on Freaky Friday was kind of great because I wasn't really getting many meetings, and I was kind of prepared to blow the meeting because the script they had was basically about like a girl who wrote for the school paper, who was trying to get an interview with Gwen Stefani at the House of Blues. And I kind of came in and said, I don't think your script works. I don't think this is like a good idea for Freaky Friday. Like it said, you have like a nerdy daughter who and a nerd, doctor mother. Like, what's the point of them switching? Like, instead of interviewing Gwen Stefani, she should be a rocker herself, and she should be play the guitar. And at the end, she should have to play guitar for And I pitched everything that was became the movie. And to Disney's credit, they were like, yeah, we like that. We like that version. And what you're pitching's good, And so that became the movie we made. And but it was, it was one of these productions where, because Disney was making some really huge movies at the same time, like Pirates and Hidalgo, they weren't really paying attention to us, and we kind of like we just, made the movie we wanted to make. And and to the earlier thing I said about specificity, once Jamie Lee and Lindsay were committed to the picture, we had rehearsals, but in rehearsals we got video cameras and we shot the movie backwards. So essentially, after the switch, I had Jamie Lee play all of the stuff that as kind of basically playing the daughter who had become the mother, but basically Jamie Lee's playing it. So Lindsay got to see, okay, this is how Jamie Lee would actually be doing all these lines, kind of blowing off Chad Michael Murray, and kind of
Yeah.
like and all that stuff, and vice versa. And then Jamie got to see, Lindsay flirt with Chad Michael Murray, and see how that dynamic. So then it's not like they did imitations of each other, but then when we got to the switch point, you did feel a little more specificity of like, oh, they're really doing each other, not doing generic adult, generic kid,
Yeah.
and I think it's one of the reasons why it clicks with people.
That is genius. I never would have thought that, but I only rewatched it as well the other day, and it makes so much sense because it really is when Lindsay is being her mother, she really is doing what Jamie Lee would have done as that character. That's fascinating. Wow. And what was it like directing Jamie Lee and Lindsay on set? Was it a wild energy? I'd imagine that was just such an amazing match to get.
Well, it was fun. One of the things I like about both of them is they're both forceful personalities. It's something where they are like, they both have a lot of energy, and and they're powerful, and then neither one of them was willing to like back down from a fight in real life, as in the picture. And that kind of energy is exactly what the movie needs. You can't have one person being like the alpha and the other person accepting being a beta. No, they both want to be the alpha,
Yeah.
and that made it, it was kind of, it was at the age where where Lindsay was, I think she just turned 16. And so, Jamie and I became kind of like de facto set parents, and kind of like, okay, we're going to keep you on track and keep you focused, because we're going to guide you through this thing. And Jamie and Lindsay, just had a lot of God-given talent, if not a lot of experience. So she was able to kind of do things. And she was somebody where, if I said to her, it's like, look, this is what I need you to do, she would just say, Waters, tell me what it is. And I'd be like, here it is. And she would, like, boom, she would just come out and stick the landing. So, and the two of them got along really well. And it was kind of a charmed production where, once we got into it, we weren't rushed. We had enough time to shoot. I think back then you had schedules that lasted 50 plus days, and now everyone wants you to shoot the movie in 25 days. Yeah, could you do it in 23? And it's like, and so everything's kind of feels like you're under pressure, a little bit rushed. Don't have time to kind of like really nurture performances. Back then you wouldn't move on from a setup until you were like, yeah, I think we really got that, as opposed to, we have to move on from the setup. It's because we're losing the light. And yeah. So, but it was very fun, and every day I kind of felt like we were coming to the sandbox, and the two of them were having a lot of fun playing in it.
Yeah, and I mean, I recently saw an interview with the two of them where they were talking, about the original film that you made in 2004 and how Jamie Lee, apparently the first thing she ever said to Lindsay was, "Hey, I'm number one on the call sheet. One day you're going to be number one on the call sheet." And then not long after, you directed Mean Girls, and I assume Lindsay was number one on the call sheet. I mean, that movie, Mean Girls, has had a cultural impact years later. I mean, did you anticipate that happening when you were making the movie?
Oh no, of course not. Yeah, and I mean, it was a movie that, it was kind of a risky movie for Paramount Paramount to make. First of all, it was a movie that was, made by Lorne Michaels through his, his film division. And usually Lorne's movies up to that point had been kind of like spin-offs of SNL characters like Ladies Man and Nights of Roxbury, whatever. And so doing something that was kind of like a fully kind of original movie under that banner was something, and we didn't have a lot of money. We once again, it was like Paramount was making huge, couple $100 million movies while we were making ours for like 22 in Toronto. So we were kind of flying under the radar, but it was something where we definitely snuck up on people every step of the way. And I think I remember John Goldwyn, who worked under Sherry Lansing at the time, visiting me on set and saying, like, we think this is coming out really good. Like,
Yeah.
do you think you could like rush post-production and have it ready? Because we were still shooting at the end of November, beginning of December, and they're like, could you have it ready by April? And we were like, and I was like, yeah, sure. But it was only because they had such confidence in it. And then every cut they saw, they were just more and more excited by what they saw and knew that it was something special. None of us knew. I mean, even when the movie was tracking for opening weekend, it was tracking to make like $12 million and finish second to 13 going on 30,
Yeah.
and then it came out and it made like, 24, $25 million, and then ended up being kind of like a big success financially. And then beyond that, it's just kind of had, like I said, it's had this real shelf life where, even today, I'll have parents say, "Hey, could you sign this copy of this Blu-ray of Mean Girls because my daughter's having her 12-year-old birthday and we're having a sleepover and and the kids are all going to watch it." And it is still happening like today. Like they're still like having these like kids excited just to see the movie for the first time. So I think it's become like a perennial thing where like new generations are discovering it over and over, which is super cool. Not expected at all.
If you're a fan of Love of Film and you're watching us here on YouTube, please subscribe. I mean, it would really help us. I mean, if you like our stuff, we post reels all the time on Instagram, on TikTok, and please leave a review. Reviews do great for us. Helps us make more of these videos on Apple Podcast reviews. That's where the magic happens. So if you have time and want to give your thoughts, it doesn't have to be positive too. If you don't like what I'm doing, you can write that down. You can get angry. Yeah, leave a review. You can help us directly by signing up to our Patreon. The links are in the bio. I mean, hey, a little goes a long way. So if you want to do that, I really appreciate it. Yeah, as I said earlier, it's timeless. It's just something people can watch over and over. I mean, for a film that's mostly set in a school as well, people would think, oh, maybe that's a more simple way to direct a movie. What would you say is the most challenging part of that? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy to make a film.
Oh well, no, I mean it's funny. I almost turned down Mean Girls because of the whole school aspect to it. I remember my agent sending me this script saying it's called Homeschooled, and it was written by Tina Fey, and it's R-rated, and it's all set in this high school. And I'm like, oh God, no! Like I just finished making Freaky Friday, which half of it was in a high school, and I was like, if I have to hear locker door slamming when they call background action, I'm gonna like shoot somebody. And so they said, no, 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 you should read it. It's special. And I did, and it was, and it was like, so effing hilarious and well written that I had to throw my hat in the ring for it. But it's interesting about the school is that we shot the movie in Toronto, and Ian and I I'm a little older than her, but roughly the same age, came from the same generation. We both, I went to school in Indiana, she was in Pennsylvania. So we had this kind of both had this similar vision of what a Midwestern high school was, and is. And so every location that I would go look at, I would send pictures to her and I say, and so Mean Girls was actually shot at like five different schools, because we couldn't find everything we wanted in any one school. So it was kind of like, oh, the front exterior was one school, the auditorium was another school, the back football field was a different school, the main hallways were another school. It was like everything was like we just saw something. I would see something that I liked and I'd be like, oh, we have to have this gym, but this gym's in a school where I don't like anything else. So even though it feels like one place, obviously, it was shot in like five different schools. and
Wow.
but it looks, but my production designer did such a nice job. That was Kerry White, and that he, it all seemed pretty seamless, and it looks really nice together.
And have you seen in recent years too? I mean, I know, I believe it was last year they made a musical version of the movie of Mean Girls, and then this year they had a sequel to your version of Freaky Friday as well. Have you seen these remakes that have been coming out?
Yeah, yeah, I enjoy them. And I mean, I think the Mean Girls musical is more of a flight of fancy in the sense that
Yeah.
it's okay, we're going to reimagine Mean Girls and kind of have this musical element. I thought that, I thought Tina's kind of like new screenplay incorporating social media, incorporating kind of modern elements was really smart. And the directors, made some fun sequences out of that. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it, and then I enjoyed the new the new Freakier Friday as well. I mean, it was kind of like admittedly a little confusing with the double switch, and the
Yeah.
fact that the girl had a British accent, but Jamie Lee Curtis didn't have a British accent after the switch, and vice versa. But all that said, it didn't. Like I said, it was a lot, but it worked, And at the end of the movie, I was crying, and I was like, and I was joyful when they played "Take Me Away" again. And only this time, Lindsay got to shred on the guitar, which was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
there's something about those characters and that concept that is like very, very fruitful if you can tap into it over and over.
Yeah, and I mean there's so many of your films when I think about it that I've seen just from growing up through teen years and stuff like that, and when I was a kid as well. So many special ones, like I was reading last night, like Mr. Popper's Penguins was a big one for me as a kid. I'd be 26 now, but I remember I was just obsessed with that movie. I mean, who doesn't love Jim Carrey? I mean, he's
And
known for
penguins.
his yeah, Penguins. It's a recipe for success. But I mean, Jim Carrey's known for his crazy energy, his improvisation. What was it like working with him on set? Was it very, very much like, oh, I'm going to direct someone, or was it just let Jim go be Jim?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about Jim is that he's actually not into improvisation. Like
Really?
Jim improvises when you're working on the script. Like when you're working on the script, he wants to sit with the writers and sit and work every moment and come up with like what's the funniest idea for this, and put it in the script, and then on the day he will bring different energies to it, but he really wants to like, because he has had a very, very large hand in shaping the script to like, hey, I want to stick to it, and then if something's not working, then we'll kind of go off the boards and go a little crazy. But in general, he's actually like he's very, very methodical and controlled in how he approaches things, but he also has the ability just to kind of like not look like anything's planned. He lets it fly, and he's I something my AD said about Jim. He said Jim is like 200 amps of current trying to get through a 10 amp circuit, and that's the thing, is his brain is firing at a clip that's way faster than ours, and he's thinking and kind of like swirling on things, and he's able to kind of like, okay, I'm going to contain this and give you just this piece of me, but I have a lot more going on. And he really is like an extraordinary talent, and he's also like just a really, really good dramatic actor. So when he's playing kind of like scenes, playing it real, and being, kind of like the authentic, emotion, he really hits that well too. And you can see movies like Eternal Sunshine, he's able to kind of
Yeah.
like play almost the whole movie in that way. But he's he I think we was it was a tough show because it was like a lot of issues with the visual effects. We had to keep the set cooled down really cold to keep make the
Yeah.
penguins. So it's like, and we made the sets like an ice box, and it was really difficult when we went outside because it was really bitter cold when we were shooting outside too. But all in all, and once again, we had plenty of time to shoot the movie and do it right. And I'm really pleased how it came out too.
And did you get any advice from your brother on the Penguins? I mean, you were saying he wrote Batman Returns, right? I mean, they had real
Nah.
penguins, right? Oh,
No,
okay.
no, yeah, yeah, but you know, we went deep on the penguins, man. We did so much research and found like the perfect kind of penguin, and actually like cast the penguins that were in the movie. We kept the penguin habitat. We built like an entire penguin habitat next to the stages, which all, whenever families would come visit, they would be like, "Oh, let's go visit the penguin habitat. We don't care what you're doing on set. We're going to go see the penguins play over here." And
Yeah.
so it was, but and then we ended up doing, like, visual effects penguins for like half the movie and real penguins. When the big challenge was that for the visual effects company, it was like, oh yeah, but by the way, we're gonna have real penguins on set, so you have to match to that. Not match to like a fake animatronic penguin or anything like that. So it held them to a very high standard of what they were trying to achieve. So it was really good.
I love that movie. Thanks for making it. Honestly, I mean, it was a big part of my childhood. I mean, another film, I'd say my favorite film of yours, and I have seen them all, is Ghosts of Girlfriends Past with Matthew McConaughey. It's such a different type of movie when it comes to like a romantic comedy because you get it's kind of like a Christmas Carol at times, but it's a very, very unique story. I mean, do you have any what's the word? Thoughts on that as in memories from set, or I mean, what was that experience like even?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting in the sense that, like, I've always liked films that have a bit of a twist or some element to that makes it kind of diverge from reality a little bit. And you see like Just Like Heaven is obviously like, like has this a woman in a coma as appears to Mark Ruffalo, and Freaky Friday has the clearly has that kind of element to it, and so I like things that have like, oh yeah, this person's reality is going to shift in a way that's a little fantastical, and he's going to take a ride he never intended to take. And so it was interesting to take that kind of classic, like the quote unquote CAD character, and put him through the ringer of, Scrooge and Christmas Carol, and like having to reevaluate his life. But reevaluate his life is like, how are you going to, interact with women? How are you going to like, interact in relationships in general in your life, and that was and so kind of putting that kind of like weird fantastical lens on that story made the story more interesting than just seeing it just a straight up version of it. And so that, and then, plus it was, pretty great cast we got together. And
Yeah.
Matthew, it was an interesting movie for Matthew because I think I pushed Matthew to be a little bit more dramatic than he'd been asked to be in some of the other romantic comedies he'd been successful in, and I think even he thinks of it as like a bridging movie between, okay, now I'm going to move into doing much more serious fare, and I'm going to win an effing Oscar, and I like to think that like this is a movie that kind of like takes him, a step away from Surfer Dude towards those kind of movies, but and he was great. Jennifer, was great, and and Lacey and Brecken were so great. It was once again, it was one of these things where we were kind of all captive in Boston and working shooting north of Boston and as well, and it was just the whole cast got along really well, and a very big cast. It was a fun movie, and one that that we kind of when it came out, it wasn't like a massive domestic success that came out in the perfectly wrong time of year. It came out, I think, in like late May or something, as opposed to coming out in the holiday season. Yet it still has ended up being kind of like financially successful for New Line. And I said, whenever people revisit it, I'm kind of quite proud that it came out as good as it did. So.
Yeah, I love the movie personally. As I said, I mean, I've seen it a million times, and like all your movies, you can just
Yeah.
watch them over and over again, and that's what makes them really special. Now,
I,
Mark,
I was very
understand?
tickled. I
Yeah,
started. I got to interrupt and
yeah,
say
go on.
I was very tickled. I was very tickled when I was on. I was watching uh, Quentin Tarantino get interviewed by like I think David Letterman, and he basically was like going like did a whole spiel about the scene on the swing set between young young Connor and young Jenny, and he basically is like said about when she gives him his first camera. And I was like, oh my God, Quentin Tarantino is doing fan geeking on me. That makes no sense whatsoever because I'm a massive fan of his, obviously, so you're not the only fan, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean that's a cool list to be a part of, big time. Now, Mark, I understand I don't have you all day. You have more movies to make. You got to get back to work. I
Yeah.
suppose a lot of the people that do watch our show are people who want to do what you do. They want to be actors or they want to work with directors. I know it's a very general question, but I wouldn't even say advice. I mean, what would you just recommend to people who want to get into your industry? Because you know a hell of a lot better than me. It's a very, very tough industry to be in.
Well, I would say that we live in an era that is more democratized than before. It's harder than ever to get into the industry in the ways people used to get into the industry, which is kind of like, oh, I'm going to go like move to Los Angeles and work on a movie set and learn this and kind of become an apprentice and an assistant and kind of like and learn the game and then eventually someday I'll get a shot to do this. It's like nobody gives you a shot to do anything anymore. Like so, the kind of like the whole system of oh, I can be groomed to do this someday doesn't exist at all the way it used to. However, what does exist is YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and amazing cameras. Like this camera on my iPhone is literally better than the camera I shot Mr. Popper's penguins with. Not even faking. It is a better camera,
Yeah.
and so everybody has this camera in their pocket if they want it. You can have and pretty much every laptop has editing software, and you can go get like a really inexpensive gimbal for your to so you can do Steadicam shots. There are things that you can do now, and you can start creating content, and like you look at like so many people these days, like there's like people who are getting hired to be direct movies who have done nothing but make content on YouTube. And then they made a short film that got into Sundance, and as people saw the movie at Sundance, they're saying, hey, we're going to hire you to direct this episode of our new TV show. There are people who are Caitlin Riley. I'm a huge fan of. Who was a big TikTok, Instagram star who started off just doing great, content during the pandemic. She ended up kind of being so beloved that people started just like casting her in movies. And she ended up like and TV shows. She kind of like appeared in all these big shows. And then she sells out, her stand-up shows with her friends. She sells out the Uncabaret. And she's actually become this kind of like legit like mainstream actress off of just like I'm gonna do crazy shit at my house with my iPhone, so
Hmm.
what I would say is like get off your ass and make something, like if you have an idea for a short film, you have an idea for a character, do it, get it again, put it out there and do more of it. Like if people want to if people like your stuff, they want to be able to click back on next week and see something else, and so keep making stuff, make mistakes and make stuff that's bad and then go, oh, that was bad, now I'm going to make it, now I'm going to work hard to make one that's good, and then because if you do that, eventually opportunities will present themselves to you. If nothing else, you're going to learn what it takes to create something good by being harshly evaluating yourself, and then you eventually will kind of like use that hopefully in longer and longer forms and in bigger and bigger venues, and that's what I'd say. Like it's a wonderful time to be a person coming up in the industry, even though it's as hard as it's ever been.
Brilliant advice, Mark. Honestly, and I think anyone starting out, they could really learn from that. Before I let you go as well, I got to tell you this. Someone from the team mentioned to me, which is such a coincidence. We usually air these episodes on Fridays, and I just found out that the day we're airing this episode is Friday, October 3rd, which just happens to be Mean Girls Day. So, I mean, so
Perfect.
to any Mean Girls fans, happy Mean Girls Day.
So sweet. Make sure to send me a tickler reminding me that it's dropping that day. I'll still give you a shout out. So,
Definitely. Thanks for that, Mark. And honestly, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I understand you're a busy guy. You have a lot of things to do. I mean, you're literally, I mean, you're working on a movie right now. So thanks for making the time to sit down to me today and demystifying how to make movies.
sweet. All right, Jamie, it's been a pleasure. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks again, and very nice to meet you. Wow, Mark Waters. I can't thank him enough for coming onto the show today. I mean, ooh, Interesting to say the least. All these movies he's made, he's so humble about it. But like, this dude is the director of, Freaky Friday, Mean Girls, Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, and all of those movies have made millions of dollars, extremely successful. I mean, I didn't even know that Mark's brother, Daniel, was the writer of Batman Returns. How cool is that, I was fascinated talking to the guy, because it's not every day you get to talk to somebody who made so many movies you watched as a kid, And a lot of the folks in the team told me to mention the whole thing about Mean Girls Day as a man. That's a little bit of something that might have slipped my head. But hey, that's why I told him my favorite movie was Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. But all the same, what should I say?
No, it's funny.
For our news this week, Chris isn't here, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about the stuff that's on my mind. This episode is airing a few weeks from today's date. I know today is October 3rd for you guys. But for me, it's, I won't tell you now. I promise it's not January or something. But I just saw the finale to Dexter Resurrection. And it was a very solid season. It was kind of weird in a way, talking to actors for our interviews earlier in the show's run. We interviewed Emilia Suarez and Intare, who played Blessing. Kind of weird if you're a fan of a show to talk to them in real life. It kind of breaks your suspension of disbelief. But yeah, I mean, I would have thought that Emilia's character, Elsa, would have a few more scenes throughout the season, but maybe they're saving it for the next season. Yeah, and Harrison went off with this Miley Cyrus looking girl, and Elsa's character, she just sort of, I don't know, she wasn't in a lot of the other episodes. So I'd say they're saving that for season 2. Maybe there's a bit of fallout with Harrison and the girl he's with now, but we're just going to have to wait and see. I thought they were going to reveal the New York Ripper as well. Like, if you remember our interview with Intare, he said he filmed the scene where it was revealed.
I mean, I thought I knew it was going to happen last episode, and I was totally thrown because I'm like, are they putting decoys in for us as actors? Like,
but it never happened. So I mean, maybe they cut that out. They're saving it. They're definitely either removing it or saving it for the next season. Also, Dexter Original Sin has been cancelled after it was renewed. That's really, really lame when companies do that. Like, I remember, who did that? It was Henry Cavill coming back as Superman. He made a big announcement because he was told he was going to be Superman again, and then James Gunn took over, and then he had to make another announcement that he wasn't Superman. To me, Original Sin is kind of like that. They're like, you guys are coming back. No, you're not. I thought that was a bit lame. It's a shame because Paddy Gibson, he's from where I'm from, Dublin. It was great to see a Dublin actor get out there and be the face of such a huge show, and the whole cast was amazing. So yeah, it's a shame. It's really, really a shame. I hope they change that decision. I mean, Molly Elizabeth Brown as well played the young Deb. I thought was a standout performance from that show. It's a real shame that we won't get to see any more of young Deb. But who knows? Maybe we'll reach out to Molly and get her in for an interview. I'd love that personally. Same with any of the actors from Original Sin. They were so talented, every single one of them. And sorry to see the show go. Hopefully Paramount are just doing some tests to see if people actually like the show, or maybe the streaming will go up. More people finding it. But a show like Dexter, even a show like Original Sin, people will watch that. I mean, we interviewed one of the actors from Original Sin, a very cool actor. Called Carlos Mendez, who played Estrada. So it's a shame because I remember even talking to him. He was really excited, thinking maybe he'll come back for season 2. But unfortunately not. So I'm hoping Original Sin gets renewed. Also, a little bit of news on Spider-Man Brand New Day. Jacob, who played Ned Leeds in all of the Tom Holland movies, has been revealed to be in the movie. There was a picture of him next to Tom Holland and Zendaya with his Ned wig on. He has an MIT t-shirt, so it's that's confirmed now. I'm kind of thinking they might be doing a thing where Peter is kind of on ledges watching him and MJ walk around, not knowing who he is. I don't think they're going to just make him instantly remember Peter, because I kind of feel like that might undo a lot of the power that the ending of No Way Home had. And I think Tom Holland is very much like, we want to tell a good story rather than a story for the hell of it. So, yeah, that's my guess on what they're doing with Ned and MJ. Sadie Sink was in the movie too. I mean, there was a picture of her from the back, as in people are guessing this blonde woman is Gwen Stacy. I mean, Sadie has already been announced to be in the movie, so I reckon that was her. But all the same, I can't wait to see Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, anyway, folks, that's all we have time for today here on Love It Film. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Mark Waters, the legendary director, for coming on as our guest this week. We will be back next week with a new guest, so I'll see you there. Oh, yeah, and if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, notifications. I mean, that really helps us stay alive because we are a small channel. And I say this all the time, not forgetting about our Rockstar Games fans who want to get a guest on, like, say, Young Melee or someone else from the Rockstar Games. We're reaching out to people. I reached out to the actor who played Nico Bellic, which, I mean, that would be very, very cool if we got him on. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining me here today, and I will see you next week.